So let me start by just going over what we're talking about here in Los Angeles. If you look at these four numbers, you'll see that LA is quite large. We are a city of 4 million residents. We have over 460 square miles of the city, 40 plus departments in our city developing and creating services for our residents, and over 50,000 city staff. So given our sheer size, we're just very focused on delivering meaningful and clear protocols and direction from the mayor's office, while also maintaining autonomy and a decentralized approach. The city is so vast and really has a lot of a diverse selection of services that we provide. And so for us as a mayor's office, it's very important that our departments feel empowered to continue to do things in a way that works for them, while also bringing in new technologies and innovations. So with this in mind, today we're going to talk about the city landscape at first, provide some context on our approach, and then we will dive into techniques and tactics to highlight what we do on a daily basis to build a strong data culture in the city. We'll move through this pretty quickly and leave time at the end for questions. So what does it mean to be data-driven? Well, in Los Angeles, when we talk about a data-smart city, we're really focused on three areas. First, we ask our departments to track it using intelligent operations. This is where they create quick, informed decision-making and making things happen with more precision and lasting impact by using data and analytics. We ask that they use data to transform essential information for daily operations. Some examples of the way that we have created intelligent operations in the city is our Clean Streets Los Angeles program. This program takes on a comp stat approach, and it's been a great model for really reforming the way that we provide services in Los Angeles and having data be embedded and woven into every element of service delivery. This type of approach will help departments stay flexible and stay ahead of stories about miscoordination of resources, really being the first to know when there is a gap and be able to identify it. The second area we're focused on is responsive and equitable service delivery. So this is really where you go beyond just tracking, but you're accelerating your impact. So here we ask departments to focus and use data to be proactive and stay nimble. They can use additional intelligence about the community they serve, coupled with metrics on service delivery to drive at gaps in equitable delivery, and be able to bring in information on the demographics of the community they serve, historical insights and trends, and information that maybe you wouldn't normally be using for your operations to just increase that, that delivery and consider equity with all of it. It also allows our departments to stay nimble and direct resources to areas in need. So using the intelligent operations and weaving it into long-term impact. A good example of a project that we've done that's focused on responsive and equitable service delivery is some of the analysis we do when new ballot measures come out. So we're thinking about how that money is going to be spent and bringing in a lot of information on the residents we serve to understand how to best allocate those resources. So the third and most, I think the most fun focused area is really around civic engagement. So you've tracked it, you accelerated it, and now you're focusing on sharing your story. So we ask all of our departments to think about how they can use data as an opportunity to engage with their customers and residents. So this is really weaving into their digital strategy, their social media, and just their larger outreach plan. So how do you tell your story with data and share what you're doing in a way that's transparent and responsive to your residents? So if our department has a new initiative on equity, we ask that they create an initiative page on the GeoHub, for instance, and begin to map out and show exactly what they're going to be doing. It's a way for them to just stay current and use new technologies and engage with a wide range of people. So a little bit more about the context here in Los Angeles. So LA has only been in the data game since 2013. Mayor Garcetti has proven his commitment to open data when his third executive directive came out, launching our open data program and really requesting that departments unlock their data systems. I cannot emphasize enough how important it was for us to have the political will from the mayor directly. And I think we'll get to this a little bit more in our discussion today, but our goal really is to show you how we can match political will and executive leadership with departmental autonomy and kind of maintaining the day-to-day work. And so, of course, a new executive directive came out that's really put everyone into gear, and within a few months, we launched our first open data portal in 2014, and it really showed just the power of coordination in the city and being able to work together to deliver a product quickly and be able to become part of this amazing movement of releasing more information to the public. So at the time, there wasn't a data team when the effort started, but over the years in 2015, late 2014, we really started to form the data team. And the data team's focus is on making all of this information more accessible so that departments can easily share data and understand why they should be sharing data. A big part of our work is about the culture change. It's about changing opinions from sharing data, could induce some hesitation and some reluctance, and really focusing on what is the return on investment for our departments, and how does this help them with their greater mission. And like I said, our focus really has been over time to balance the mayoral leadership with departmental autonomy. And I'll just speak a little bit more to our core functions. So we're really focused on expanding data sharing in the city through our open data programs, as well as developing the infrastructure internally to do that, and building capacity, bringing in new resources into the city through research partnerships, and expanding the use of analytics as well. So to make this all happen, you have to have the infrastructure. So we have two exciting open data portals. One, again, launched in 2014, which is our tabular portal, has over 500 data sets, as well as visualizations. We really encourage our departments to curate the data that they present. We've noticed that the data sets that are most popular are the ones that are obviously easiest to understand. And so we have very high standards for metadata completion, which Chelsea leads, and we'll speak more to that. And also, it's important for us to contextualize the data so that people know what it's being used for and how they can use it. The second asset that we have is our GeoHub, which is the first of its kind geospatial portal that has advanced data sharing settings for internal data sharing as well. So it has a front-end platform for the public to use, and it also has a back-end where we have over 150 groups of different people within the city, as well as research partners that are sharing data for a specific cause. For example, we just started our regulation of cannabis in Los Angeles, and so there is a group forming around that as an example. There is a water conservation group. It's a very exciting place to just quickly log in and see how many people are working collaboratively, and all of that is possible on the GeoHub. And here are just a few examples of what I meant by contextualizing data and just how we're really growing our portfolio of putting data to work and really creating apps and tools for the public and for internal operations. And so these are just a few examples. We have the mayor's dashboard, which is a very simple interface that the mayor looks at regularly to understand how his departments are doing. How is he doing as a mayor in delivering basic services to our residents? And we have cards on that dashboard that turn bright red if we're under on a certain goal, or green if we've met the goal and are doing pretty well. We have the Road to 2400, which is a very beautiful map, interactive, that lets you see how we are doing in paving our roads in Los Angeles. So as I said, huge city, and we have a goal of paving 2,400 lane miles every single year. And so this map is a wonderful tool for the public to use and see exactly which areas are lighting up and being paved. We have a Citywide web analytics app that shows web traffic across all of our city websites. And it's a fun tool to see where people are logging in, where they're spending most of their time. Really excited to see that the Los Angeles Public Library is always the top hit. Our library system is fantastic in providing a variety of resources. And then the bottom three, we have our open budget site, Streetwise, which is an interactive tool that really shows how data sharing can improve city operations. It's where all of our public works departments work together to make sure that when we are doing some street construction work, we are scheduling it and coordinating it internally to ease traffic flows in the city, and also helps a lot with coordination during emergencies of being able to see where there are construction sites across the city that are blocking the public right-of-way. And lastly, CleanStat, which I've already mentioned, and I'm happy to speak more to our applications at the end. A little bit more about the GeoHub. I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to speak to you about the different features it includes. And so we do have a number of features that are highlighted. The story map feature allows our departments to really contextualize data and develop that story. It's helpful to see a map, and your eyes can kind of glean insights from that. But the beauty of the story maps is that you have a side panel or widgets where you can really play around with the data a lot more and have literature on the side that you're able to read as you're glancing at the map. There are also additional dashboards that you can build that are all basically out of the box, approved apps that are ready to go, and that's really fantastic. There are lots of ways to collect data on the GeoHub. So we have survey collection tools that many of our city employees are using. Actually, our census team is now deploying a survey collection tool to make sure that we are counting everyone in Los Angeles and getting people that live in units that are harder to see from the street. And so we have a lot of people going out and making sure that we're counting all those addresses. We also use the data collection for collecting information on our street cleanliness. And then there are other additional data sharing features and spatial analysis tools. I wanted to give you a couple quick examples of just how people are working with our data within our departments and what we're doing as a team. So this is just a rapid response in using mapping technology to just quickly turn around and create a product for something that's very much needed in our city. So Los Angeles is very committed to ending homelessness in the city and in the county, and recently we developed an open shelter application as just a quick response, really, where we are capturing information on bed capacity nightly so that our first responders can go and see where there are still beds available for other residents in Los Angeles. We're also developing tools that really get at the responsive and equitable service delivery. So a few months ago, we completed a project called the Community Safety Data Commons, and we developed a very interactive platform with information on crime over time, and we developed basically a street network that showed you which areas of the city have had chronic increasing and decreasing crime. And we're using that layer of intelligence as the backbone for new programming decisions. And so now we have a group that's working on actually placing programs based on the data, based on that layer of analysis and intelligence, and adding in other criteria that are important to them to develop an index that helps them define within a large spatial area where is the best place for me to place a program where I will have the maximum impact. And lastly, speaking to civic innovation and civic engagement, data opens up a lot of innovation in our city. We have wonderful examples of how when departments unlock their data, people are using it for personal inquiry, for research, for advocacy, and we're just so excited to be able to share those stories. This is one great example of an application, a whole business that was started because of open data. And actually, it's a real estate intelligence platform that's using data from our permitting and zoning data sets to develop something that developers can use to actually know where there's potential for new development in the city. And then another great example that I wanted to share, we had someone from the public who was doing some construction on their house. Basically, you use open data as their own version of Angie's List or Yelp. They weren't satisfied with information they were getting on contractors. They felt like the contractors were cherry-picking testimonials, and so they went to our open data site, used our Department of Building and Safety data to actually we gleaned through all of the data on those contractors and all the different projects they've had to make a more informed decision. So we're really seeing people trust us, trust our information, and make very important decisions in their own lives and develop businesses off of our data. I wanted to speak a bit about our process. When we developed our open data program, our departments were integral to every step of the process. And I think of this pyramid as a way to just quickly tell you more about our approach. And so even in the development of the GeoHub, for example, we convened a steering committee comprised of the top GIS users in the city to guide the work. And now we have a GIS steering committee that's planning the future use of GIS in the city. And Chelsea will tell you more about that. But basically, the people are interwoven into every step of our approach here. And their opinions are integral to effective deployment of new technical solutions, as well as new protocols. We also regularly meet with the IT agency to seek their cooperation when implementing protocols. We also provide documentation for all new data stewards so that they don't need to rely on institutional knowledge to succeed. So working within such a large organization, after developing that infrastructure and the protocols, we really focus on culture building. And taking time to do this, I think, is key to really building out a strong and systemic change within data management. Chelsea will speak more to what we're doing on a daily basis to develop a collaborative culture with a fail-forward mentality to ease existing concerns about data use and operations. And then the last thing I'll say to this is really it's a cycle. So in these uncharted waters, you really need to leave room to test and iterate and repeat this process. We're always continuing to learn from our challenges and using all of the data coordinators as advisors on our process. So 3 key tips for managing data programs. The first thing I'll say is, again, we're really focused on this top-down, bottom-up leadership approach. Being in the mayor's office in a city that's so vast, you're not in control of everything, and we shouldn't be. And so to really create the change that we want to see, we do have to work very, very closely with our departments and consider them in every decision we make, bringing them in for focus groups, bringing them in for advising on huge new RFPs that we're going out for bids for, and we really do take that approach every step of the way. The second tip is to develop a data culture by building a community. So sort of aligned with the first one here, but empowering everyone to come to the table. We know that data coordinators are so strapped for time, and often data departments within cities are understaffed. It's still an area that's growing and gaining traction, but we know that they are understaffed. And so the more that we can provide support to them and be there to hear their challenges, the more likely we'll all succeed. And lastly, I just want to mention that it's so important to find data champions. They're the key to systemic change in the city. We have a few that we can think of right off the bat that have told us repeatedly that in their 30 years with the city, they've never come together as a group with other data coordinators from other departments to actually sit down and talk about challenges. So as much as a meeting seems mundane, it is revolutionary for our city to really bring together a community of practice. And these are the types of people that we want to keep empowering and hear, what their concerns are. And we do notice that when there are data champions that we're working with, they're the ones that see the value of tapping into data and using it for operational improvements. And so bring them in as early as possible to help persuade other minds is really key as well. So with that, I'll end my portion of the presentation and I'll switch it over to Chelsea, who will talk a lot more about our tactics and day-to-day.
Thank you, Starry. You could pass me the ball and mute your volume on your.
Hi, Chelsea. We're having a little trouble hearing you.
Here we go. All right, so now I'll elucidate on some of those strategies and principles that Sari was mentioning. And so when it comes to techniques, to people power, as the title of this webinar makes you imagine, but then we can also use technology to make it easier to maintain a world-class open data program. So I'll go through a few instances for how we use those.
Excuse me, Chelsea. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're having some trouble hearing you. Is there a way to come closer to the speaker? Thank you.
Is this better or is it the same?
It's a little better.
Okay, let me know if it's too quiet. So as Sari mentioned, it all starts with our Citywide Data Collaborative. And so I wanted to share the way that we present the collaborative to its members, which is that we're collaborating with the data leadership to identify citywide gaps and needs as it relates to data. And so there are a few pieces in here that are worth highlighting. So first, it's that empowerment idea that this is the data leadership in the city. They are the experts, and they're the ones that really make it happen. And then in addition to making people feel empowered, it's important to make them feel heard. So we want to know any needs that they have. We can take that back to the vendors and to other people in the city. Whatever they are facing, we're here to help them. So it's a balance between empowerment, accountability, and then listening and providing support. Okay, so then within the collaborative, I'll go through one of the major examples that come to mind, which is when we went through a citywide inventory of all of the data sets that are on our open data portal. So we launched the portal in 2014. In 2016, this is when we launched this inventory and got really clear on our metadata standards. So again, Los Angeles is very large. We have over 40 departments. So in launching the open data program, it was a very decentralized approach where we didn't give many standards, and we actually wanted to see how different departments went about updating or uploading their data sets, what they identified as data sets that should be made public. But now 2 years later, we can actually come to some best practices now that we have kind of that broad landscape and a lot of different variations. So now it was at the point where we wanted to provide some real clarity and protocols and infrastructure, as Sari mentioned. So we made this acronym CACTI that just gives some kind of high-level needs for data sets that we've learned through feedback from users. So getting into kind of tactics, it's important that any protocols that you give are based in in some real reason. So in this case, we have enough users and we were able to learn from them what makes a quality data set. And we also looked at what data sets get the most traffic, and it's those that are regularly updated, have clear names and field names. So this was based in some evidence. So we created this standards and checklist, and then from there, we made an inventory tracker where all the data stewards were to go through their data sets, use that checklist that we provided, and then note if they are working on the checklist or whether it's complete. Another part that that was really important to the inventory process was identifying individual owners. So many of our data sets only had a department listed, and there were a number of reasons why it would be better to have an individual owner. So first is accountability and empowerment. If you are the one that owns a data set, you're a lot more invested in making sure that that's a quality data set. In addition to that, we actually needed to know who to reach out to when we get questions, because prior to that, we might have reached out to one of those, to a generic department.opendata email address, and so we weren't able to build as strong relationships, as now each data set has a person attached to it, so the conversation flows a lot better. And then aside from just our office communicating with data stewards, it helps when everyone in the city, all of the data stewards in the city know who owns each data set, they can actually speak to each other a lot more easily. And so kind of fostering those connections among data stewards in different departments. Another advantage of having individual owners and asking a clear action of filling out this tracker and going through the checklist is, of course, that it provides accountability. So on that note of accountability, we also have a dashboard where we look at the tracker, and so you can see some metadata completeness graph on the bottom left. So metadata is one thing that we're focused on, but it's more than that. We want to have a real overview of what's happening on the portal and beyond. So metadata is one component. We also look at traffic. Again, we've learned from analyzing our data that the data sets that are regularly updated get the most traffic and are the most quality data sets. So update frequency is something that we pay particular attention to. Then customer service, so when we get data set requests from the public, we maintain a separate tracker of those and are making sure that we're following up, that we know the next step for getting that data set updated or put on the portal. And then in addition to that, it's not all, or accountability has, it gets kind of a negative connotation, but it's how you get credit too. So we want to make sure that the data stewards know that we're paying attention to their data sets, that we value their data sets. And so part of that, we also have a champion of the month of someone who has been updating data sets or responding to questions from the public or thinking proactively. It could be for anything. And ideally, I think in the future, we would want to have more data stewards nominate each other. But so far, it's been, we have the most visibility to be able to recognize people. But going back to these tactics and people power, recognition is extremely important. So that was the inventory process. Once we finished that, we wanted to think about what data sets could we be adding to the portal. So now we've gone through our data sets, our metadata, but there's a lot more data in the city. Not all of it is on the portals. So to come up with these principles, we didn't want it to be a top-down approach. We don't know the answers to this. So in our collaborative meeting, we broke into small groups and had groups discuss what makes a valuable data set. And this is an example here on the right of some words that people came up to describe a quality data set. And so we had great answers. and a lot of engagement and discussion, which is in itself a really valuable part of the collaborative, just having people having data stewards get to know each other and talk. So so that was kind of the bottom-up portion, but then to take all that information and put it into an action plan, that's where then we on the data team were able to provide that support and put in the work to kind of consolidate the things that people came up with. So on the left, this from data to action is an example infographic from our publishing guide, which now exists and is linked in this slide back here, but we can send it separately too. So the idea there being that we started with a bottom-up approach, got feedback from everyone, but then the data team put in the work to kind of consolidate it and share it back out and get feedback. So making it a real feedback loop. That was the collaborative, but now having had the collaborative going for 2 years, there's been a lot of activity and what I will call working groups and offshoots. So specific needs that we've identified that then became their own group, which is really one of the purposes, and we want to do so much more of this. But I'll just highlight a few here. So as Sari mentioned, the GIS Steering Committee is a group that's specifically focused on the use of maps and spatial analytics and how we want to grow GIS in the city of LA for the next 5 years, as I put here. We also talk through technical needs or ideas to bring back to Esri. We discuss our infrastructure and how GIS can integrate with our other portal. So similar to the collaborative, we want to bring together the leadership, and we really want to listen and understand from the experts in the city what we should be focused on, and then we on the data team can take that information and help make it happen. A smaller offshoot group is Citywide Address Management. So addresses in the city are a challenge for a few reasons. There are a lot of departments who need address information or maybe collect their own address information, but it's not all consolidated into a single source of addresses, and that creates duplicative work, and then there's a lot more that we could actually do with the information if we were able to share it out more broadly. So the effort of this group is to bring together all of these different data sets. For example, some departments need the actual unit information of a building, whereas the Bureau of Engineering, who is the official maintainer of addresses in the city, their data set only goes down to the building level. They don't collect individual units. So how can we bring that together in one data set? Coordinating on procurement is a huge priority in the city, but it's especially relevant for data as we're thinking through our data software, our enterprise software, and how we can get the most out of it. And then the Batcave is something that happens every other Friday. There's one today. And this is where we really get into troubleshooting and specific technical needs that don't quite make sense for the collaborative, since we're thinking more strategy and kind of long-term things in the collaborative. The Batcave is more of your everyday questions. And what's nice about that, too, is that it's a peer support network. So it's not us providing the answers to people's questions. It's encouraging them to have a conversation with each other. We also have many community events and workshops all the time happening. I highlighted 2 here. The one is a data steward in the city worked with General Assembly to have a workshop on open data and civic tech tools, where the audience is a mix of city employees and also people from the public for how can they get the most out of our portals and data. And then the other one listed here is an event for Open Data Day, which is coming up on March 3rd. And so for this one, we're working with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and going to do a workshop with neighborhood councils to try to use our data and get it out there more in the community. Those are a few examples of things that have come out of the collaborative. Now thinking about getting more current, what are we focused on now? And so we've reviewed our data sets, we've thought about uploading more data. Now really getting into making our data easily sustainable. So to do that, we need to automate, and then getting more value out of our data, so we need to increase the use of analytics. When it comes to automation and using technology, this is a really exciting example of a project that we did with USC, or that we're still working on, where the Information Sciences Institute is using machine learning to read all of our data sets across our open data portals and normalize location data and time data so that you can click on any location and see all the open data associated with that location. And what's so powerful about that is that we don't need to do this manually. We don't need to all agree upon how to formulate an address. Does it need to be longitude, latitude? You know, all of these things that takes a lot of effort. We can actually use technology and machine learning to figure out what an address looks like, and then leave departments to use what makes sense for their needs, and not all need to conform to a single standard. And then on the analytics front, this is just one example of how we're trying to build more analytics into the departments and provide support to do that. We last year started a Data LA Summer Academy, where we had interns applied to one of these 3 tracks and then place those interns in departments. So this provided a good mix kind of for everyone involved, because in the mayor's office, we had weekly check-ins with the interns, and we provided field trips and workshops and training so that they felt like they were part of a single cohort. But then each intern was in the department and really got to know the day-to-day, got to know their data, and got to provide a lot of value to the department. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback from this, and so we're launching the second one, starting to launch it now. And we have a lot of other examples of partnerships and ways that we try to provide support and capacity for departments to get more value out of their data. And just some reflections on where we want to head next. So LA, we want to be the most transparent, data-driven city in the world. And we've done a lot so far to improve the quality of our data and get more value internally and foster more connections. Looking forward, we want to do a lot more engagement and build awareness about our data. So we're starting to realize now that we have 1,000 data sets. We've been working on their quality. We need people to really know about this portal. So we need to do more to engage the public, to get the word out there about our portals, and through that, through the spring civic engagement and the connections that we've been building, we expect to see a lot more value. And then on that note about value, we also want to get a better sense of what metrics we should use as a whole to look at our program, and then for individual departments, what metrics are they looking at to evaluate what value they're getting from their data. So with that, I will open it up to questions and discussions. Thank you for being here. We're really excited to chat with you all. I see one question here. Did your teams use agile techniques, Scrum, Kanban, etc., to build your GeoHub and open data sites? We do use Kanban a bit with a project management tool called FreedCamp that's laid out that way. So we definitely think in that way a bit, but I think that's somewhere that we want to get a bit better at if people have ideas or experiences that they'd like to share. We're just going to switch to sorry.
1 second. Okay. Okay, I see a question here on how do you balance data availability with data security? That's a great question. I think this is something that every city working on open data asks and has protocols in place for. We work incredibly closely with our city attorney's office. We have HIPAA PII specialists who approve any sensitive data that would be going out. But as a city within a county that oversees public health, we don't manage a lot of PII data. And when we do release anything that would have had PII, like information on crimes or arrests, we have protocols in place where we actually change the address so that you wouldn't be able to trace back that particular event. So we aggregate the addresses to the 100th block to avoid any kind of issues with that specifically. And so those are the types of sensitive data that we have released to the public, but we don't actually oversee too many other sensitive data sets at this point. I see another question here. So someone asked more about the process to develop the goals and measures.
Yeah. So it sounds like that was about that open data dashboard. So those measures came from a person who worked here named Bob Stone, who has tons of experience changing government, and so he had this idea that whenever you're looking at a program, you want to look at business metrics, employee engagement, and customer service. So those came directly from him, and then we just thought about what falls under those three concepts. And so our business metrics are site traffic and metadata and data quality, and then so we just kind of fit them into those groups. But in showing that dashboard to the collaborative, we've gotten a lot of feedback, and so I think it's something that could become sort of a template and something that we figure out and make more standards around. But we're in sort of early stages in developing the goals and measures.
Great question on the Data Academy. It really was an experiment. So there's a question in here about embedding interns in departments. How did that work, especially around app development, and how is IT involved? That is a great question. So what we did there, and I think this is a theme throughout our work, is basically open data is a very demanding thing to ask of people. These data coordinators didn't just pop out of thin air. They're people who've had jobs before open data became the lay of the land. And so they were overseeing systems, they're overseeing their data infrastructure, and have many other tasks. And so we want to do everything we can on the data team as the team that asks for open data to help them out and make the process of releasing data as seamless and easy as possible. And so what we saw with having regular meetings with our data coordinators, we kept getting the same concern. So we would say, you know, this year, let's think about the types of data sets you want to make public. Maybe you can actually curate a series of data sets and have a visualization component and have this and that. And we would come at them with all of these suggestions. And then typically we would get heads nodding with excitement, but we would get some hesitation as well, saying, you know, I don't have capacity to right now to deliver exactly what you want, but I do want to do that. And so with that in mind, we kind of had an epiphany and realized that we would be marrying a need and an opportunity here. We have so many students knocking on our door looking for opportunities, and so this was really not, you know, a way to do that. So we had undergraduate through doctoral level students working with our departments, and we would match them based on what their skill set was and what they wanted to accomplish. So speaking of the app development question specifically, there was one wonderful student who has experience in developing in web development, and she worked with the Bureau of Engineering, and they were interested in redoing their system where you can currently log in and see what projects are in place that have been permitted that the Bureau of Engineering works on, like bridge repair and that sort of thing. And so the current system is it looks like a back end that you would need to log into, but you don't, and it's a large browser site with a very small drop-down window, and it's not as accessible as it could be. And so she wrote all the code and created a new plan that they're now rolling out. And so the ITA, or IT agency, is involved in that process every step of the way. The Bureau of Engineering has a bit of autonomy with their technology as a big bureau with many engineers working on these types of tools, and so that's a unique situation where ITA maybe wasn't very closely involved in helping with the deployment, but they're well aware, and everything follows the protocols in place on how sites should look. But that was a really exciting project, and I'm happy to send more about it. Something that there's so many things that if you can devote the time to it, can be completed within a summer, and we're really excited to be able to continue. So please do send us, you know, anyone you think of who may be interested in this program.
So many great questions on here. I'll just cover some easy ones since we're running out of time. So our team is very small. We're only 4 people. So
but not full-time even.
And not full-time. So we are pretty impressive.
We are 2 full-timers and currently 1 part-time and an intern.
And the 3 groups I'll just go back to. And we'll also be sharing these slides, but the 3 groups were business metrics, customer service, and employee engagement. And so city departmental buy-in with the metadata set, or with, I'm not sure which initiative.
Maybe open data.
I think all of these things that we've been speaking to today has helped tremendously. You know, making people feel a mix of empowered and supported, and building trust, building those relationships. We've gotten a lot more buy-in over the past 2 years. And building awareness is kind of the next frontier that we're really focused on. We see Open Data Day as a big opportunity, but I think that's also where these sorts of networks can really help. If we can share more about each other's portals and kind of build the open data movement as a whole, I think that helps.
I'll add to that. We also want to make sure our departments are engaging with the public. So the mayor's office, as you can tell, is very small and mighty. And so we aren't always the customer-facing group. Our open data program is very public, but think about the Department of Building and Safety. They are regularly interacting with their customers. And so we're working to get all of them to have direct links to our open data portals on all of their websites, and have it be more of a gateway through the regular kind of internet pathway that someone would take to interact with the department, and getting data up there as part of that path.
We also have a blog that is probably something that we could have put in here, but it helps a little bit. Sometimes we'll put kind of tips on using the portal and new data sets that have been published. So trying to use more platforms to get the word out and to help people actually use the information.
And for everyone, we're happy to share all of our resources in the spirit of open data and sharing. We want other people to be developing their inventory trackers and learning from what we're doing. Another thing that we didn't get to mention that we're working on are beyond inventory tracker, creating a data action plan for each department. And the idea with the data action plan is to again, the accountability component, but really about that 5-year plan. You know, Mayor Garcetti has a few more years in his second term, and so we're here for a while, but we don't know what will happen with the data team office in the next administration, and our goal right now is to make it as systemic as possible within the city and find a place for us. But also thinking about, you know, maybe there won't be a need for a data team in a few years because we will have already corralled everyone we need to and coordinated with everyone and made everything clear. And we sort of want our data officers within each department to own their data. And so an action plan is a way for us to create that plan for longevity and succession.
Jessica or anyone from ASH, do you want to close us out?
Hi, this is Jessica Engelman from the ASH Center. I think that does about wrap us up. Thank you both so much for your presentations, and thank you to everybody in the audience. And I will close out the room now. I guess we'll take one more question
and then we'll close.
Okay.
So someone asked about providing a list of partnerships that LA has developed. Sure, we are more than happy to share more resources on who we work with. We are really excited about the research community in Los Angeles and beyond, and we have the city as a whole, including other departments, has about over 20 research partnerships at the moment, working on a variety of things from predictive analytics to process improvements, business improvements, and we take capstone projects. We work regularly with students completing master's programs who are looking to do their final projects with us. We also work with research institutions. So, for example, the Community Safety Data Commons that I mentioned earlier, which has that chronic crime network, that was developed by in partnership with the USC. They have a spatial sciences institute that solely works on geodesign. And the amazing thing about that program was that it developed a pipeline for us within the city. So like many other cities, we're struggling with the fact that 50% of our workforce is eligible to retire within the next 10 years. And we are very happy to say that one of the students who worked on that project from USC is now a full-time member of the team, working on the GeoHub and other data services for us. And we are really glad to have that pipeline and that relationship developed. And we're now working on another project with that same institute on stormwater, so helping us predict what kind of capture could we have if every person who could have a rain barrel had one, and beginning to think about that long-term forecasting if it rains again. So we'll close with that. Please do reach out. Thank you very much to Ash Center and Catherine for the opportunity to speak today, and we look forward to getting in touch. Thanks.
Thanks.